What's the stupidest way you've hurt yourself? I once went on my balcony to smoke a cigarette. Only I forgot there was no balcony anymore because it was getting fixed. So I broke my leg falling one story down. Now the real irony was, my mother wanted to fix the balcony because it was old and she was afraid it might break off and I might hurt myself. In high school I was showing off with a staple gun and accidentally stapled myself in the chest. Then, when telling the story later, picked up a staple gun to demonstrate and accidentally did it again. I am not a clever person. I was being attacked by aliens in a dream. When they backed me into a corner I kicked one hard in the head. I woke up immediately in pain. I had just kicked my wall in real life. Badly sprained my ankle. Couldn't walk properly for a week. I've sneezed and had a sharp neck pain for a week after. This has happened more than once. I know it sounds very Looney Tunes, but I actually stepped on the head of a rake once and the handle hit me in the face. Alright. So my sister is only 1 year older than me, and when we were very young, me 3 and her 4, we were in the bath together. I guess my mom thought this way was easier. She left to get something and my sister said that I should dive into the tub like a dolphin. Me, being the idiot toddler I was, decided this was a wonderful idea and dove right in. Had to get 3 or 4 stitches and a lifetime of stories told about it. I was finishing up this intense jigsaw puzzle, which was on a low table. So I spent the entire night crouching on the gonads of my feet. The next morning, my right foot turned purple and swelled up to the size of a large orange. I was on crutches for a couple of weeks. I was 8 years old and running home on my lunch break so that I could watch Inspector Gadget, which came on at noon. I decided it would be neat to look down at my feet while I ran. And next thing I know I've run full speed into a parked car. I think I laid like a dead body on the road for a good 5-10 minutes. It hurt so badly. I was late for my Inspector Gadget episode and never told anyone what happened. I no longer have a toenail because the garbage was too heavy. I was taking the garbage out in sandals but the garbage bag was too heavy to carry, so I put it on my skateboard and rolled it down to the street. The tip of the skateboard lodged under my big toenail and ripped it off. 3 faulty regrows later, I just don't have a toenail on my big toe anymore. For all you freaks who want to see it, kind of gross I guess, imgur.com. When I was 5, I was rushed to the ER twice in the same week. First I slid down the banister as the door below swung open and I crashed headfirst into the corner of the door. Then 3 days later I was playing on the radiator, slipped off, and smashed my head again. Doctors thought my parents were abusive and there was an investigation over it. Apparently. Not about me but someone who sat next to me in a class a while ago. She was clipping her toenails and a big toenail flew up and hit her in the eye and she had to go to the doctor cause it cut her eye. So she has a bandaged eye for a while lol. I gave myself a black eye in my sleep. Rolled into the corner of the nightstand. It was so cold I didn't notice until I looked down and saw the blood. Drank from a glass bottle while walking. Knocked out a piece of my tooth. When I was about 16, I was telling some story to my sister's boyfriend. I was rather animated about it and began to flail my arms about until I hit the glass fixtures of our ceiling fan and showered glass upon myself. Part of the glass cut around my nose and I began to rain blood. Was left with a nice scar and a decent story about situational awareness while speaking. Buried at the bottom so I am safe. I was at work in a high-stress office complex in Virginia. The work made you eat quickly and often at your desk. I was eating a baby carrot and tortilla chips, when all of a sudden I'd get stabbed with the edge of a chip midway chewing a carrot. Blood all down my throat, the chip was sharp, and I turned blue choking on baby carrots. Good times nearly getting killed by a chip and a carrot. Learn to slow down when eating. Edit. Of course my top comment of my account, 10 years old in February 20, is of me choking on a baby carrot. Thank you kind stranger for the gold. I laughed at all the comments and hopefully those around me haven't figured me out yet. I was leaning over a fence post trying to bend straight and a light just mishit and bent. Only rather than use the claw of the hammer, I used the face of the head of the hammer. Slipped off and smashed myself in the forehead. A good 15 years later and I still have a scar on my forehead like a sheet Harry Potter. As a kid I saw a rabbit on the other side of a fence so I tried to climb over, knowing full well it was hot wire. Naturally I fell off the wood between the wires and damned near electrocuted myself when I fell onto the wire. Never did get a hold of that stupid rabbit. Take your pick. 1. I burned the sheet out my hand on a go-kart muffler trying to help the neighborhood kid push it out of a ditch. Ended up with a blister 4 inches high on my palm. 2. I was running through the house, on tile, with socks. Inevitably I slipped and had to catch myself on the couch. Unfortunately I got my finger stuck between the cushions. Broke my finger. Both of these happened in the same year. As a kid I once wanted to shave myself just like my dad did. It's kinda obvious what happened next. Blood everywhere. I still have a scar on my face. As a security guard I was running to deal with an issue and my flashlight came out of its pouch, went between my foot and the ground. Stepped on it and broke my ankle. I wonder if I can jump high enough to hit the door frame with my head. Once as a child I lit a dryer sheet on fire thinking it would burn really fast because it's just fluff, right? Now it's more like plastic. And started dripping flaming molten gonads of hatred on my floor. I was scared. I panicked. I shook the dryer sheet. A few molten plastic lava ball burns on my face and arms later I now respect the laundry and leave it to my wife. I went to take a plate of Toadfilms pizza rolls out of the microwave. The plate was so ducking hot that I dropped it. Molten cheese bounced up and was burning through my ankle. I went to stick my foot in the sink to run it under cold water as if I am flexible enough to stand on one foot and get my leg up that high. I fell backwards and cracked my head like an egg. I had a 3rd degree burn on my ankle. 2nd degree burn on my fingers and 6 staples to the dome. For ducking pizza rolls at age 30. I tore my navel smoking pot. At work. When I moved to my new workplace, I was forced to switch from regular steel toes to heavy duty boots with a plate over the laces for my protection. While unloading a load of steel, the plate, that is there for my protection, caught on the lip of a steel beam I was stepping over on the stockpile and dropped me from standing up with my head 6 feet up to ground level. Very luckily, there was a 10x6 steel beam to catch me on the edge to keep my head from hitting the concrete floor. And I only had to get 12 staples and take a week off work. Of note, the only reason I bought the ducking boots in the first place is that the GM noticed I didn't have them and told me if I didn't show up next shift with them I'd be sent home. Torn rotator cuff through means of self-loving. Anybody who has TMJ knows you can aggravate it in the stupidest ways. When I was in high school I was eating an apple and my jaw completely froze as I was taking a bite. The apple was just hanging from my mouth suspended by my teeth. I looked like a horse with brain damage. I had to get my dad to extract the apple from my mouth. It hurt like a rich for a long time. I couldn't chew or talk properly for months and my entire face was crooked because my jaw was stuck off to one side. It healed eventually. But later I set it off again by eating a cookie. I once set it off by yawning too wide. It sometimes goes off on its own for no reason. I wish I knew what it was like to have a working jaw. Edit. Thanks for the gold. This is my first one. Bit a goldfish cracker at an odd angle and stabbed my gums. Tried to open a wine bottle with a knife because the cork was stuck inside and my drunken self stupidly thought that if I cut around the cork with a knife, I could just pull it out. I almost cut off my entire finger and had to go to the ONT. Also, as a child I was very tubby, particularly around my waist. One day I was frying something in a flat pan and I wondered how close I could get my stomach to the pan without burning it. I burned it. And I still have a very slight scar to remind myself of how much of an idiot I can be. Broke my foot kicking the tires of a car I was considering buying. There was a wasp drowning in the pool and I scooped it up and saved it. In return, it stung me and my hand ended up swelling to twice its size. Will never trust one of those monsters again. Poked my eye putting on safety glasses. Got my lip stuck in a Ramune bottle. Cut myself with a pretzel. Twice. I tried to throw a dart into the bullseye on a dartboard that was on the floor, but threw the dart right into my left foot instead. Remember when your parents told you to tie your laces or you would hurt yourself? Well, they were right. I was that kid who ran with untied laces. I fell and instinctively put both my arms out. I landed on my right hand arm and managed to snap my forearm and dislocate my wrist. As I had dislocated my wrist before. As I was accident prone. I attempted to pop it back in myself in panic. I can't describe the crunchy noise that my arm made. Or the pain I felt. I then had to walk to the nurse's office at my school. And wait for my parents to pick me up. They didn't think it was serious. At the hospital the x-ray was a little extreme. And I had to have surgery to correct my arm. 14 years later. And my wrist still isn't the same. And it still hurts in the cold. Life tip. Tie your ducking laces. Went head first on a boogie board down a carpeted flight of stairs, with a landing at the bottom. Dunno if the dent in the wall or my head was bigger. I tried to iron a shirt while I was wearing it and burned my bob. I was listening to music while getting ready to cook dinner and decided to use the frying pan as a mic. Did one of those look away from the mic to take a breath moments only to turn back dramatically at a powerful lyric and hit myself in the face with the pan. Dislocated my shoulder by throwing a frisbee really hard. I was shooting basketball when I was a kid and kept missing. I got really mad and threw the ball as hard as I could because I was done. It ended up hitting the pole and bounced back hard enough that it smashed me in the face. Completely knocked me off my feet and I smashed my head on the asphalt. Stepped on a nail. Twice. The same one. Felt something sharp piercing my skin. So immediately picked the foot up. Then, in order to avoid falling down, I placed the foot back on the same nail. Only then I got to adjust my body position to avoid falling down. Falling for someone who didn't care for me. I strained my ankle throwing fesses at people. I was just too enthusiastic about it and didn't warm up properly before. I thought it was a great idea clean a Gillette with my fingers. Fell asleep while riding a bicycle. I was sober. But going to school full time and working a part-time job. Knocked myself unconscious and got pretty banged up. It hurt when I woke up on the pavement. Squeezing a pint glass too tight. Took my dad's high-powered rifle with scope out hunting without his permission when I was 15. Never having used a scoped rifle before and with no one there to correct me. I slid the rifle butt off my shoulder and tucked it under my armpit before aiming. At the same time, I placed the rear of the scope right up against my eye and pulled the trigger. The recoil from the gun firing punched the metal edge of the scope right through the skin on my forehead and into my skull just above the bridge of my nose. As clean as if it was a cookie cutter. Hurt like hell and bled like a mother ducker. Plus I missed. And that, my children, is how dad came to get that funny arc-shaped scar between his eyes that you've always wondered about but were afraid to ask. Broke a baby tooth in half eating hard candy. Also busted my lip because I sat too close to a foster dog who was jumpy. Both happened when I was a kid. I was jumping on a trampoline and when I jumped straight up in the air the growth plate on my right knee just snapped. Doctors said it was bound to happen because it was growing too fast.